My name's Ken Beer. I'm the Principal Engineer at Safe System Solutions. We're a specialist road safety engineering consultancy based in Australia. I've put my QR code here to my LinkedIn page. I encourage you to connect with me and so we can continue the road safety conversation in that forum. I've also got my contact details there. I'd encourage you to get in contact if you'd like to discuss this topic in much more depth. I want to acknowledge my colleague, McCardel. Max is co-author of this paper and was also the Road Safety Auditor and Safe System Assessor alongside myself for the New South Wales assessments that we undertook, and I'll explain those shortly. I also want to acknowledge the team at WSP, Scott Benjamin and Julian Marr. They were doing the bulk of the work around these trials, and we were simply providing some road safety input in some specific tailored ways. Transport for New South Wales, especially like to point out Mark Coolin, Joseph Lee and Andrew Hooley, who were instrumental in the safety aspects of this trial, and Andrew himself running a far wider area of these trials. So the three sites that we were looking at in this project, and we undertook these roads that cars can read assessments, which we have sort of made a bit of a process for that, which I'm going to take you through. They were Armidale in New South Wales, Newcastle, and the Olympic Park area. And so these were to have shuttles operating on them, and so Safe System Solutions was engaged to come in, develop a methodology for assessing the routes, the infrastructure, and identifying risks that may be present for the autonomous vehicle, but also for any of the travelling public in association with that autonomous vehicle. So we took a real safe system approach to this, and we tried to sort of contextualize the principles of the safe system into the autonomous vehicle world and for these shuttles and these routes in particular. So in that sense, we're looking at that understanding of human fallibility. So we've got a really great aspect in the sense that we've taken the human out of the driving task, so the vehicles are driving themselves, but we still have the pedestrians, the cyclists, the other vehicles interacting around the vehicle, and there will be error that will happen by those road users. We have really gone back to the principles of biomechanical tolerance to physical force, and tried to say, well, vehicles striking each other or vehicles striking pedestrian cyclists or motorcyclists, there will be forces exchanged, and are those forces within tolerable levels? And we've put the shared responsibility. And that shared responsibility principle is, yes, the system designer and those designing the trials and the automation of the vehicles, but also the system designers in terms of the road authorities and the different road users. So at a very sort of simplistic level, we came up with some principles we were trying to understand for these routes. And this is, remember, really looking at the infrastructure interaction with the vehicles and the vehicles and other road users present. So we're not looking into the software design, the system from that sense, but more the infrastructure, the speeds, and the road user interaction. So we're looking at these for a few things. Do we see atypical, non-standard features in that road environment which has the potential to confuse the vehicle, or it's not something that the vehicle will be looking for? Is there a mismatch between the digital infrastructure and the real world infrastructure? Some particular features such as on-road bike lanes, street parking, right turn moves, shared zones and school zones were all areas that we were very conscious of looking for. Also roundabouts and a few other features. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of all of these simply because we don't have time here. Some of them are represented in the paper, and there's quite a bit of emerging research and knowledge in these areas. But the risks in the atypical road environment are quite varied. So unique signs, unique turn manoeuvres, unique line marking, different intersection geometry, variable speed limits. These are all things that the vehicles, we're just unsure about how they're going to handle those scenarios. Now, our role as roads that cars can read assessors, as we sort of termed the phrase, but those sort of providing that independent risk assessment of the infrastructure, our role is to sort of identify, question, and put those forward to the bigger project team, the vehicle designers, the software designers, so they can work that through and be sure that the vehicles will handle this. And in some situations, they might decide that that route is not appropriate, or that they want to alter some aspect of the infrastructure. In order to try to capture a bit of a systematic way to assess this, we worked with a number of people within our organisation and within some of the road authorities and other consultants to develop 100-point checklists. We call this the Roads That Cars Can Read checklists. And a lot of the questions on this checklist, or things to think about in the infrastructure for these CAV trials, are things that are somewhat obvious, but it's great to do that thinking around those specifically for that scenario, and also to often think about these things in the context of an automated vehicle. So different road design aspects, the signs, the line marking, as I've mentioned before, and just systematically questioning, is this in accordance with the Australian standard, which is what it's likely to be based on if the vehicle is reading signs or line marking, for example, or is the vehicle mapping its own route, and that's a secondary input into the vehicle's decision making. That's just one example. So lots and lots of questions that we came up with and we've put down there. And happy if you want to get in contact with me, we can share some of this with you. So I just thought the easiest way to explain some of these features was to just give a few examples in the limited time we've got. And I've got here on screen a few examples when we have gone out, we've assessed the route, similar to the way you do a road safety audit. So we walked the route, we rode a bike through the route, we drove through the route, we looked at the features of the road environment, the speeds, the way road users are using that environment, and then predicted the way that the automated vehicle may interact. So here's an example of where the shuttle, the AV shuttle, is going to approach this intersection and take a left turn. And as the sort of Roads That Cars Can Read assessors, we looked and we said, well, that's quite a wide opening there. Now, is that, what position is that vehicle going to take as it approaches that intersection? And are other road users going to try to slip around that vehicle? If the vehicle's traveling slow, they've been stuck behind it, or they're in a hurry, they may decide that this is a good opportunity to, sneak inside it or sneak outside it. And again, we're just putting this question to the project team for them to try to get their head around, is that a risk that we need to do something about? Is it something that the vehicle will cater for in its current operations and programming? Or is it something that we have to alter? Or do we have to potentially, narrow this intersection, build curb outstands, temporary curb outstands, or more permanent fixtures? Again, this one is now looking at some of the redundant line marking, or the line marking that's been blacked out in this occasion on the approach to this spike down roundabout, which is all for the motorsport that uses this area during one part of the year. Now, again, are the vehicles going to be influenced by the line marking, which is obviously clear there? And again, it's about putting this question back to the project team, the operators. Has this been accounted for? And they will do lots of testing and live trialing and identify this as well. But we're flagging it as a potential issue as well. Another one here is talking about an area where along the route where the shuttle will be travelling along, and it's quite a narrow section of road there with parking on one side, the bike lane and the small buffer zone there. So the vehicle will be chugging along through that bit, and we're just interested to understand how the vehicle's doors would open, as in the parked vehicles. If somebody parks, opens their door, how will the shuttle react to that? Are they moving into the bike lane? Will they go into the bike lane? Are they very close to the doors, and what speed are they travelling past those doors? Again, flagging these as questions, thought starters for the project team. And the final one that I'll use as an example in this short presentation is the reverse angle parking, which is a New South Wales thing. In a lot of regional areas in New South Wales, they do this. In Newcastle here we were looking at, there was one section of reverse angle parking. Again, it's just asking the question of how will the AV shuttle approach this scenario where the vehicle is coming along, they're following another vehicle, for example, or the other vehicle's propped past their parking spot, and they will be reversing into it. Is the shuttle going to be in a position to understand that vehicle will be reversing to leave its space, or will it be up blocking that ability for that to happen? How does that play out? How does that scenario play out? And putting that back to the project team. So these CAV trials and the further integration of connected and automated vehicles into our road network is hugely complex. There are so many players playing their role, and I think the independent safety assessment, the risk assessment, the safe system assessment style methodology or road safety audit style methodology plays an important puzzle piece in us developing these trials, rolling out these trials in a wider way, and helping us to integrate the autonomous vehicles further and further into the operating environment of the transport system. So we do need to think about the roads and roadsides, the speeds, the vehicles themselves, their safety features, both the automated vehicle in a shuttle trial, for example, but also the vehicles interacting with it. The road users themselves, so pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, so car drivers, also the shuttle vehicle occupants and how they're going to operate, and thinking about post-crash care. So you can actually undertake sort of a rigorous safe system assessment of the whole process as well to give that safety lens. It's complementary to the general risk assessments that happen with these sorts of trials, but it's a pretty good methodology and a pretty good framework to use to assess risk of CAV trials. So thank you very much. I encourage you to get in contact with myself if you'd like to discuss this further. But otherwise, good luck with your CAV trials. Keep safe system at the fore as you're thinking about safety of all road users associated with these vehicles.